Yeah. One, two, three, four, five, six. So we only need to attack with the. We don't need to attack with the Kindreds. What's going on, guys? Mully here, and welcome to the first deck guide for Empires of the Ascended on this channel. Today we're going to be talking about a newly revamped version of a previous deck that I piloted to Masters back during the Monuments of Power meta when Go Hard was everywhere, and that is Demacia Harrowing. I'll go over the deck's game plan, how the new cards in this deck change the way it's played, and finally, the multiple different ways you can build this archetype depending on what decks you're facing, because this is probably the most flexible this deck has ever been since the beginning of Legends of Runeterra. Then we'll have some gameplay afterwards. Some will remember this deck and that it used to run Lucian and Kalista, but this time around we're going with Kalista and Kindred. After messing with a lot of different deck ideas with the new cards these past few weeks, and nearly all of them being absolute failures against the meta decks of old, I decided to settle on updating a few old decks of my own, and finally found some success after updating this one. For those familiar with the deck, you already know what this deck's game plan is, but for those new, this deck actually plays very similarly to They Who Endure decks, and to a lesser extent some versions of Nasus decks. We're using roughly the same sacrifice unit package that pairs with Kalista in order to level her up consistently. It's the most aggressive group of units that Shadow Isles has access to right now in Bark Beast, Curse Keeper, Ravenous Butcher, Blighted Caretaker, and what's still my personal choice for the second one drop, Warden's Prey. Other decks use Hapless Aristocrat, but the reason why Warden's Prey is still here instead is because our win condition is a little bit different from the Nasus Atrocity decks or the They Who Endure decks. We eventually want to set up a turn where we play the Harrowing between rounds 7 and 9 and bring back all the strongest units we've played that died earlier in the game, ideally with Cytheria and Kalista, and attack with a bunch of buffed fearsome ephemeral units for the win. Hapless Aristocrat stickiness can get in the way of that, since that's one less unit we'll be bringing back because we have a 1/1 stuck on our board that we couldn't get rid of, and there are very few truly bad units that you can get off of Warden's Prey. Anyway, what makes the Harrowing particularly strong in this deck is the synergy that Cytheria has with Kalista. Kalista makes an additional ephemeral unit at level 2, and then Cytheria gives it +1/+1 and fearsome as long as you've positioned Kalista to the left of Cytheria in combat. The only cards that have changed in this deck are that we're playing Kindred over Lucian, and we're now running Fading Icon, whereas in the old list, it would normally be a flex slot for cards like the Grand Plaza, Neverglade Collector, or Crumble. Kindred has been performing pretty well in this deck. The card basically gives us access to a backline champion that doubles as repeatable removal if we have the right cards in hand to impact the board. Luckily, most of our sacrifice cards or removal spells are pretty cheap at 2 mana or less. That said, Kindred does change how the deck performs a bit as far as speed. Kindred is slower than Lucian is and can be fairly expensive to play, especially since usually you want to have additional spell mana to play either Glimpse Beyond or single combat when you play Kindred. This deck doesn't have a problem doing that, mainly because other than a possible Remembrance, it has no round 4 play to spend all its mana on, but it's something to keep in mind. Also, without Lucian, this deck has a less aggressive opener. The deck can no longer potentially win with an early Lucian level up on round 4 or 5. However, Fading Icon along with Kindred gives the deck a more balanced opener, and what I mean is, while Lucian could give you those explosive starts, he also makes your early game more awkward when trying to level up your champions early, especially if you couldn't find another unit to sacrifice to Blighted Caretaker or Ravenous Butcher to do that. Now that the deck only has to worry about leveling up Kalista early instead of trying to do both, it can focus all of its resources towards flipping Kalista. A lot of times leveling up Lucian got put on the back burner, and I've often said in the past that when playing this deck you actually don't value Lucian that highly, and that he often won't level up until much later in the game. Sometimes not until after a Harrowing turn. So this version doesn't have to worry about those awkward openers anymore. Fading Icon just gives you another target to sacrifice to your other units, plays around Rockhopper, and can trade up occasionally. And now with Kindred, you don't get those awkward starts of Bark Beast into Lucian into Kalista and wondering how you're going to get either of their level ups going, or being forced to sacrifice Bark Beast when you might not want to. Speaking of which, Kindred has excellent synergy with Ravenous Butcher in this deck, but I'm still running 2 just because of the nature of Ravenous Butcher and how it can still be a dead card in your hand, even in this particular version. The last thing I want to talk about before we get into the gameplay are the different ways you can actually tweak this deck at this point in the meta. 31 or 32 cards in this deck will pretty much remain the same. The only cards that would change between different versions right now, anyway, are basically the champion slots, whether or not you want to run 2 or 3 copies of the Harrowing, and then you'll have 2 to 3 flex slots depending on how many Harrowings you play. So there's basically 3 different versions of this deck at this point. There's the original version you can still play that runs Lucian and Kalista with 3 copies of the Harrowing, and you'll have 2 flex slots left. I played Neverglade Collector, the Grand Plaza, and most recently Crumble for those flex slots, and I personally like Crumble the best out of the 3, with Grand Plaza surprisingly being the worst, and that was before it got nerfed. There's this current version that you see with Kalista and Kindred, although I will say I am considering cutting the 3rd copy of Fading Icon for a 3rd copy of the Harrowing. And then there's a version that runs Lucian and Kindred with 2 to 3 Harrowings and 2 to 3 copies of Senna. This 3rd version is the one I'd like to run, but as long as Freljord control decks with Lissandra are popular, it's not really viable since Avalanche and Blighted Ravine take out both of them at the same time, and you have to be pretty crafty when it comes to playing Lucian and Senna against those decks if you want one of them to survive so the other one can get buffed, and that usually involves Sharp Sight. Speaking of Sharp Sight, as much as I'd love to cut this card, since it has almost nothing to do with this deck's game plan, I don't see myself getting rid of it anytime soon. It's basically Demacia's version of Pale Cascade, and it's just way too good, especially right now against decks like TF Fizz, which is still a rough matchup for this deck. You definitely have to pick the right spots on where to use your single combats, Sharp Sights, and Caretakers against it, but this seems to have game against everything else right now. But that's it for the guide portion of this video. We're going to jump into some gameplay. If you like what you're seeing so far, be sure to hit the like button just below the video so that way you can let others know in the Legends of Runeterra community here on YouTube about this guide. Also, the next video I'll be uploading is a bit of a special one, so if you don't want to miss out on that one, then consider subscribing to the channel and hitting the notification bell so you get notified when that video comes out. Thanks for taking time out of your day to watch this. Enjoy the gameplay, and I'll see you next time. It's possible Lucian Kindred works, but I'm not going to try that in this meta. There's no way. And single combat's probably better in that matchup than Sharp Sight against TF Fizz. Probably just takes a while for them to, because they don't really have their big elusive. They don't get their big elusives going right away. So it's probably better to just have single combat and just kill TF instantly as soon as they play him. Yeah, I'm going for this.
See what we see. So
oh, that's not bad. Huh. So we can trade here and then, wow. I can't believe they matched us. That's insane.
the desert by my side.
All right. You got it. Okay. You're funny. It's like, hey, I have an insane opener too. How about that?
not rest until all betrayers pay.
Let's see if they have whale. I don't think they run whale. Not the Kindred Nasus list anyway. I don't think they run whale. Okay. Alright, well I'm just gonna throw these away. Because they all have 1 health and they'll get decent trades. Yeah, Dunekeeper's super pushed. Manu S said that Dunekeeper was really pushed, and I was a little hesitant to say it was, even though in the back of my mind I kind of knew it was. But we hadn't got to play with the card yet, so I was just kind of like, let's see. Let's see what happens. It's pushed. It probably does a little too much. Oh, okay. So as not to activate Kindred, Kalista. Got it. I'm probably playing Kindred.
Shall we, dear wolf?
I'm ready, little lamb. I was feared once, just as you are now. What's that, lamb?
Something soon forgotten, dear wolf.
Its heart beats fast now.
It knows.
Alright.
Soldiers, to me!
What's good? Is your Nasus big enough? I haven't been keeping track. That's all you have? That ain't good.
Don't hold back!
I must be known.
That is not good, my dude.
The guilty will suffer.
Yeah, they have to block that way. Oh, okay. I got you.
We shall return.
One to remember us by.
I'm gonna single combat right away.
Everyone's a garden.
Okay, no, I'm not. Definitely not gonna single combat right away.
We weren't expecting callers.
Well, I think we're gonna single combat whoever hooks Cythria. That's what we're gonna do. Okay.
Yes, you'll do.
Ah.
Its heart beats fast now.
It knows.
That was fun. Who will we chase now?
Everyone, dear wolf.
I'll just open here.
Hours.
Alright, we still win. They need atrocity here.
It knows.
Yeah, they need atrocity. Atrocity won them the game there, but we couldn't play around it, so.
With grace and precision.
Alright, Frostbite. This is historically a tough matchup for this deck, but it's definitely winnable. It is winnable for sure. Okay. That's fine.
I've gotta get out of here.
You must know me, little one. You must. There can be no justice, only revenge.
What do we got here?
Marauder. Ooh.
I will find someone.
Let's have some fun.
Yeah, we could. That's tough. That is very, very difficult. These are both. This is going to be a 6-5, and then this is going to be a 5-4. So, how do we want to handle that? Is the question.
Our vengeance has burned long enough. Act now.
There's Troll Chant, which sucks. Which means I'd have to, I think we're hitting this one. Troll Chant beats this too, though. That's the problem. Flash Freeze. Alright, well, we were able to beat Flash Freeze. That's the good news there. So this is another meme. They're just playing Marauder just to play it, which means they're playing the 8-mana spell too.
The wrong shall find their vengeance.
Knocked and ready.
Kind of want them to spend mana here first.
Oh yes, she does our visitors.
History forgets, but the Black Rose remembers.
Ah, bro. That would have been so good.
I'll protect the villages.
Do this take 3, I guess.
Save the homestead.
Okay.
Look what I found.
So it looks like they're gonna get it here. If I play this, I only get one. I'd have to still kill the Warden's Prey here. Like, I can go ahead and play it, but man, that would have been insane, dude.
Oh, fresh soil.
But we have to do it this way just so. And then we need to put the caretaker, the sapling on the far left. That's what we need to do. They could Reckoning here. This board's it's fairly strong against Reckoning though. Alright. That should basically be their turn. Yeah, that should be their turn.
There you are.
Cool, do it again.
Come, this way.
Nice. Probably cut Marauders from that deck, bud. Probably want to do that. Just run regular Frostbite. This 8-mana spell is 8-mana spell is not gonna make Marauders viable. It's like, nah, that ain't it, dog. Nah, that ain't it, dog. We got a Azir burn. It's the third time I'm facing this deck. And now it's like, well, okay, do we, have we learned? And the answer is probably not, because I just don't know this deck's breakpoints. I just don't. I don't know what it's capable of. Well, how much damage it's capable of doing on a given turn. Let's just put it that way. Looks like they skipped. Yeah, I think they skipped. Interesting. Like, I'm gonna play Kalista here, but we have a good turn next turn. Especially if we don't spend mana here.
That egg, did it move?
Alright, I'm fine with that.
What does he want from me? Oh!
Shouldn't have done that.
They grow up so fast.
This is their linchpin card. They need this up to win the game. Okay, it's fine.
No fair.
I didn't want them just like deciding, okay, I'm gonna take the damage. Like, I was fine preemptively single combating there. Because they're at 20. Like, we're not killing them. They could just use their life total as a resource.
My saplings.
No, they shouldn't be able to do too much here. I do think we need to We need to play Kindred for sure. Like I think our turn is just Kindred, and we just hope they can't do too much.
The desert by my side.
The crazy thing is that they've been able to do
Shall we, dear wolf?
6 damage still. Aside from all of that. Alright, well we have a blocker for Onlooker.
There you are.
We don't. Never mind.
Azir's command.
So what are we doing here? Oh. Interesting. I mean, the Spoder gets it. Probably Sentry here.
Nothing escapes my watch.
It's a little. I mean, this pushes more damage. Fading Icon. For sure.
Everyone's a garden.
He might sack here. Or that.
She does our visitors.
Trust is a weapon. Return to us.
That's 4 damage.
Our sun rises. Do they know, little lamb? That was fun. Who will we chase now?
Everyone, dear wolf.
We could sack literally our entire board right now. We could do that. Just sack our entire board. He's looking for Doom Beast. And he found it. Because why wouldn't he find it?
Remember me, little one. Please.
He'll be mine.
He is for the other.
Oh, fresh soil.
Interesting. Could hook. This is Curse Keeper's not the play here. We just kind of let these go. We're just even on board. Interesting. Do we still not do it? It gives us the option. That sucks. Actually, it makes sense because the sapling's the sapling's the it costs 1. It's mana cost. Mana cost is the tiebreaker. It goes power, then if it's weakest, it goes power, then health, then mana cost. I think if this is the only attack, then we should just sharp sight here. And like, I'm not even gonna harrowing at this point. God, I finally beat this deck. Jesus. I think it's better than Lucian Azir. But I don't know. Honestly, the deck feels like once you figure out like how it actually wins, what damage choices it needs to win, then I think it falls off a bit.